Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Need to be in masterminds.
Yes.
Badly.
Everybody
Okay.
probably.
Yeah, and it's really hard for somebody like me to say, hey, you know what? You need to pony up $30,000 and just go join this thing. So talk for just a second about what you learned joining the mastermind group. And then if somebody's thinking about joining one, it sounds like if you knew then what you know now, would you have joined it sooner?
Okay. Yeah. So let me unpack this, because I think coaching and masterminding and peer groups are absolutely essential to heat any kind of peak performance. So I'm in this specific mastermind. It's called the DIC, Diamond Inner Circle. And it's through the Commercial Academy. And that's the very expensive one. So I'm grandfathered in at 30, but it's higher than that now.
Yeah.
I'm also in EO, which is across the entire country, right? Entrepreneurs organization. Very affordable. So it's like $7,000 a year. And then you get your little peer groups and you mastermind once a month. And then I'm in another mastermind that's completely free.
Mm-hmm.
So it came out of the DIC. There's 8 of us, and we get together twice a year, and we just talk about each other's deals. So in that one, it's pretty crazy because it's such a small group and so intimate. We all know each other so well. We do what we call one sheets, and we spend an hour, maybe an hour and a half per person going through a one sheet, which basically lifts the skirt up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's what's your net worth, what's your liquidity, how much hours, how much money did you donate, what are your goals, and it goes through everything. And then you kind of get beat up a little bit, right? Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
trying to help you, but to help you, you got to create pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and that's completely free, right? And then there's another one that we meet once a year, and it's all business, not real estate. In fact, there's only one other person in that room that's real estate, and that's really highly focused with a moderator, and that's only once a year, and it's like $500 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. It's very affordable. So there's all these different levels of masterminds that I am personally in. But what I learned, to answer your question, I know that was a long way to get to your answer.
No, it's fine. You're fine. Go ahead. I want people to hear this. That's why I asked. So I appreciate you taking the long road with us, because it's important, man. I'm not joking. There are a lot of people out there that need to be in a mastermind. I'm going to give you an example in a second, but go ahead.
All right. Well, let me back up before I tell you what I learned in the DIC.
Sure.
So I knew the masterminding was so important from Think and Grow Rich, right? So a lot of us have read that book. So we know that it's an important piece to your success. And I was having trouble finding a mastermind group to join.
Right.
There's a lot more now than there was when I started 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So what I did is I just decided to start one. And I wanted it to be in Denver, and I wanted it to be real estate investors, and I wanted it to be totally free, sort of like the mastermind group that I just told you about.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was, hey, I want 6 people, and I want all real estate, but I don't want anybody to compete. So I want a real estate attorney, I want a mortgage broker, I want a real estate investor, I want a realtor or a broker. So I just picked out a title person. So how do we all help each other?
Mm-hmm.
And then I just started identifying who I wanted in my group, and I would just call them and ask them. And I'll tell you what, Mike, I heard way more no's than yeses, right? People just didn't want to do it, because I was shooting high, really high. Like to even get them to answer their phone was unlikely, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up piecing this thing together. And what we did was every month we would get together and work on each other's businesses and try to support each other. Now there's a leads piece to this also, because there was no competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have set agenda with a set tasks to complete for the next month to help our business grow. And if you didn't hit that, this is the accountability piece that makes masterminds so valuable. So simple. All you had to do was buy us all breakfast the next month. So if you didn't complete what you said you were going to complete, bill's on you.
Mm-hmm.
And this went on for years and years. So I think you are right when you say it's very important, and I think people should hear this. And I think people, if you don't go pay for one or find one, you can create your own mastermind group.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
was
exactly what I did.
frustrated. I was frustrated many years ago. Okay. And I was actually at a point where I was thinking about getting out of the business altogether. I was in the mortgage business, and I had gone to BNI, I'd gone to Latip, I'd gone to all these places,
Yep.
and anybody in real estate was 47th on the list. I'm sort of exaggerating, but I'm not
No, I
joking.
know. I know exactly
there
what you're
were,
talking about.
there were 13 mortgage lenders ahead of me
Yep.
on one of them.
And those are
okay?
leads groups that you're talking about. You're not really trying to
I'm
help
talking
each
about
other.
Latip, I'm talking about BNI, okay?
Yeah.
Referral groups, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I end up going out and starting my own because I'm not real long on patience, okay? And you probably figured that out by now. So I go out and I start my own. And it's one of the best things I ever did. But the best thing that I did was I masterminded with a bunch of people. So I went out and got a guy that owned a body shop. I went out and got a guy that owned a mechanic shop. I went out and got a guy that was a dentist, right? I got a doctor. I got, a stockbroker, right? My entire business quadrupled in 12 months from just doing this. There were other things I did, but just doing this quadrupled my business in 12 months. It was insane. And I'm still to this day, that was 30 years ago. My goodness, that sounds like a long time. That was 30 years ago. And I'm still to this day reaping the benefits of doing that 30 years ago. Okay. The importance of masterminds are this: you are absolutely programmed to do what's comfortable. And I can tell you this because I know it personally, and I've also learned it. If you've ever read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss,
Yep.
he talks about this amygdala, right? I'm saying it wrong, I'm sure, but it's the whatever. It's that gland in your brain that talks you out of doing things that might in fact help you, but your brain starts telling you, no, I don't know. It's that little voice, right? That's, I don't know, you probably should, right? Probably shouldn't work out today because you're a little sore,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
If you look at champions in this world, champions hear that voice and it's a trigger to go. Tony Robbins is a perfect example. I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, big student.
Me too.
Certified me in sales mastery 35 years ago. That is a long time. They should have put me out to pasture a long time ago. Okay. Wow, that is really a long time. I should have, yeah. Anyway, so
But you look great.
He will. Oh, thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks a lot. Anyway, right, and checks in the mail. So he goes out every single day and does a cold plunge first thing. And the reason he does it is because that amygdala is just screaming at him, right? And he's like, look, you're screaming at me, but I'm going to tell you that when I say go, we're going. It's it. Okay. David Goggins is the same way. When David Goggins has that little voice going, he goes out and runs 100 miles. I mean, come on, dude. Right. So here's what's interesting to me. You're literally programmed to take the easy way out. You're literally programmed to take the lazy way. Okay. And I hate to say this to people because it's sort of a rude awakening, but it's true. You are the average of the 5 people that you spend time with. So I have a good buddy of mine who is literally right now experiencing massive stratospheric success in San Diego. He's been on our podcast. Okay. He went to a Tony Robbins event. It was a business mastery thing for like 5 days, rocked his world. He went out and found himself a group of multi-millionaires. Okay. All these guys are entrepreneurs. All these guys are super successful. They all got together at this really hoity-toity club in San Diego where they meet monthly. Okay. And they're sitting around a table. He told this story. They're sitting around a table and they're like, hey, how many times have you been bankrupt? 6. How many times have you been bankrupt? 3. How many times have you been bankrupt? 5. Right. And they get all the way around to my buddy, and my buddy, they ask him, he goes, 0. And they all start cracking up. And he's like, why are you laughing? And they're like, because you haven't tried hard enough.
Yeah. That's
You
powerful.
haven't taken enough risk. Okay. He took that to heart. Now, this is the accountability thing. Okay. He took that to heart and he went out and started taking greater risks, like literally jumped out of his comfort zone, the whole thing. He's now literally experiencing the most success as we speak right now that he's ever experienced in his life. And all this happened just a few months ago. That's, I would submit to you, the power of masterminds. Okay. There's another person that was on our podcast just a couple of weeks ago. Her name's Deborah Razzo. Deborah went through, nearly died in a car accident. Took her an entire year to rehabilitate, learn how to walk again, the whole thing, okay? Her brother comes out from Florida, spends a year with her. She's in a deep depression, as I'm sure you can imagine. And her brother says, look, you can look at this two ways. You can look at it as if life happened to you or it happened for you. She found Tony Robbins. She's now an employee of Tony. She's a counselor at Tony Robbins events, has been for 8 years now, okay? Started a real estate network in LA. She's now flipping houses and she's now a real estate developer, experiencing the most success she's ever had in her life. But it came from getting a group. She went to this investors association in LA and basically got all the women in that group to come to brunch one day. That started her network, and it took everything that she did to a whole nother level. These are all examples of masterminds. I feel like this is incredibly important, and I'm going to tell you this. I feel like God brought us together so we could talk about this today. Okay, I feel like this is a divine thing, and I'll tell you, it's something that's been on my heart, as I'm sure you can tell. Okay. And I know it's on yours because I know I can tell that you experienced this. And now that you've experienced it, you are on the other side of it where a lot of people need to get to.
Yeah. Look, I've made millions, millions from mastermind groups.
Yeah.
Here, and it's not what you learn. So I know that was your original question, what you learned. Well, it's not what a mastermind is about.
Right.
It's about the cheerleaders. It's about the accountability. It's about being able to share successes. Who in your network, who in your sphere can you honestly say, I have a goal of, an 8-figure balance sheet or whatever your goal is.
Right.
I mean, people would laugh at you.
Right.
Your normal sphere, they're not going to support you in that. And when you start having success and you start sharing that success, and then there's jealousy and there's resentment and there's all of these things, which is why we as entrepreneurs and high achievers, we hold that inside.
Yeah.
But a mastermind group allows you to release.
Yeah. That's why you have to upgrade your sphere, right?
And that's what a mastermind does.
Upgrading of the sphere in the mastermind groups.
Yeah.
Hello? Right? This is very simple, right? It sounds complicated, but it's not. So, I feel like that's incredibly important for people to understand. People who succeed at a very, very high level are part of this. They have this kind of support structure, right? Where you're sitting down and you're talking, and I'm in groups too, but you're sitting down and you're having a conversation. I went to a mastermind group 2 weeks ago here in San Diego. And the guy that put the mastermind group together is a buddy of mine. He's been on the podcast. We've interviewed him, right? Manny Moreno's his name. Shout out to Manny, right? And Manny said, hey, we want to have you down for this mastermind deal. Great. So I come down, I'm sitting there, and as I try to get to things early. So I'm 15, 20 minutes early, whatever it is. And Manny's standing in front of everybody. Hey, Mike, I'm super excited you're here. This is before everybody gets there. Super excited that you're here because, we can use your expertise. Like, Manny, I'm not here because I'm an expert. I'm here to learn, right? I'm here to learn from you guys. I end up teaching like 90% of it. Okay. I'm not joking.
I believe you.
This one guy comes up to me and he goes, hey, we've got this meetup that we do with investors next week. I'd love for you to come. Okay, I'll be there. So I go, right? There's a kid there that has a podcast that he started last year. He's in the midst of raising $200 million to build 785 affordable housing units right now. Okay. He's not much older than my son. I mean, talk about powerhouses, right? I'm sitting there with a private money lender. I'm sitting there with a guy that is getting ready to ink a deal to build houses for a developer that I literally worked with, that was a client of mine 2 generations ago. No joke. Okay. I've been doing this too long, right? But it's a small world, man. It's tiny. There's a guy standing there in that meetup that I've done deals with, tons of deals with in the last 3 years, never met him face to face. And he's standing there. They get around to introducing it to, everybody's introducing themselves. They get around to, he goes, I'm super excited to see Mike Litton here. What? right?
And who
I'm
are
like,
you?
excuse me, right? And all of a sudden he says his name and I realize who it is.
Yeah.
You with me? Because I think it's his high school yearbook photo that's in the thing that I've been looking at.
Oh,
I'm
that's
joking.
hilarious.
I'm
Yeah,
joking. By the way,
I was gonna say,
Alex
it sounds about right.
Day, right? But it was one of those things where you're just kind of like, what? And I'm telling you, and I know you are too, people need to listen to this. Okay. They need to go. And I know it's tough to go meet new people and all that kind of thing. I get all that. Okay. But you'll find people you'll connect with, and you'll find people that you enjoy talking to and that will encourage you and you'll encourage them. Man, at some of these mastermind groups, somebody needs a contractor. These guys showed up at this thing. First time I've ever been at this meetup. They had a $15 million contract for fast dry concrete for a bridge in Mexico. They have a contract and they don't have a supplier for it. So they get up in front of this group and they're like, hey, we got this $15 million contract in case anybody's interested.
Yeah. I'm sure you had no problem finding a supplier.
Kind of cool, right?
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Do you see what I'm saying though? And that's the kind of conversation that you're going to have in these groups. So I want to encourage people to go find mastermind groups, go find different things that you can go be a part of where the people around you are all more successful than you are.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
And get yourself in a place where they will help you lift up. They will help you with whatever you need. CPA, any attorney, whatever. In case you have a deposition. Just kidding. Right. All right.
And the people that you want in your group typically have huge hearts.
Yeah.
I mean, they will give their time and share with you. And I'm on this call with you and I'm getting text messages from one of my mastermind right now.
Yeah.
And it's every day. There's just so much encouragement through text. We all support each other. And I mean I know we've been beating this to death, but it is a game changer.
It's a big deal. And I feel like that's part of why you and I came together, is so we can get this message out. You with me? Yeah. And I know there are people, we're in 35 countries now. We've been doing this 8 months as of a couple of days ago. We've been doing this 8 months and 2 days. Exactly.
Wow. Congrats.
Okay? 100, you're the 185th episode. Okay. We did 50 in the month of February alone. I don't even know what happened to February. Okay. It's like a flipping blur. We've had over 300 requests to appear on this broadcast. Tell me that's not cool.
No, that's so cool.
Right? I mean, dude, it's amazing. We just broke 150,000 listens. In fact, last night we broke 154,000 listens. Okay. We're at 154,884 in case anybody's counting. We have over 75,000 downloads. We are rocking, dude. We have like momentum to spare. And it's super, super exciting to be doing this, right? The best thing about it though, is the quality of the people that we're bringing to our listeners. There are people in 35 countries, and actually technically it's 36. I found out the other day that there are people in the US military that are fans of our podcast that are on a base in Yemen.
Interesting.
Did you know we have a US base in Yemen?
I did not know that.
I didn't either. But they're fans of our show. Isn't that wild?
Well, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah. We have officers in the Space Command that are fans of our show.
Yeah. Does that count as a country? How does that work?
No idea. But they're in Yemen. Like, what in the world is the Space Command doing in Yemen? Anyway, it's just cool, right? So I feel blessed to have had the opportunity to get to know you. So let's talk about Pine Financial. Let's talk about, like, I know you're doing fast closings, easy qualifying, free consultations, that kind of thing. And obviously, your stuff. And so if an investor is thinking about flipping houses, they need to come talk to you. If they're thinking about, what other things are you financing for people?
Yeah. So when you're in this business, there's risk, right? There's risk whenever you loan money.
Sure.
So one of the things we do to help mitigate that risk, Mike, is we are very geographically focused on the money we loan out. So there's two sides of the business. One is bring in private capital. So investors that want to be some exposure to real estate, but they want it to be passive.
Mhm.
This is a great way to get involved, right? And it's very consistent, very secure, all of those things. And that's nationwide. But
Okay.
when we loan the money out, we want to be very careful. So we want boots on the ground. We want people in our network that can go out and visit it if there's any problems. If we get a property back, how do we handle that? So we're in obviously Colorado, which is where we're headquartered. We have a pretty big presence in Minnesota and the Twin Cities. We did go across the border there into Wisconsin. So we do cross the border from the cities and up in Milwaukee and then in Washington, D.C. So I know we're kind of spread out and there's a story about each one, but those are the 4 markets, right? And then the investor side is again nationwide. As far as what we do, we loan to real estate investors on value add projects. So we're 80% residential. That's where I feel the most comfortable. It's strong, it's liquid, and people would think I'm crazy when I say houses are liquid, but look, I could drop the price of a house and get rid of it pretty quickly. And it's easy to manage and run. You could produce cash flow if you want to rent it out. So I like residential a lot. That's obviously my background. So 80% resi, 20% everything else. So commercial, land, anything like that. And it's all value add. So when I say value add, Mike, what I'm talking about is, are you able to physically add value to the real estate, to the property?
Right.
So think about your fix and flips. Think about your BRRRR strategy where you buy it, rehab it and rent it out. And, we finance those. On the commercial side, it's...
Hold on. Let's just a second. Let's talk about BRRRR for just a second. Okay.
Yeah.
So you buy it, you rehab it, you rent it out. So you buy it, you rehab it, you rent it out for a higher number.
Yep.
You then turn around and refinance it.
That's
so
right.
What you're doing is you're financing the buy, the rehab.
Yep.
Right. They're going to rent it back out so that now as a higher rent get, if you will, it's now worth more. They're going to refinance it. They're going to pay you off and then potentially pull out some equity if they built some up. Okay.
Yeah, there's two ways to do this.
Okay, go ahead.
So the first one is if you're just going to do a normal traditional type of transaction where you're putting a 20-25% down payment and you're funding the construction or whatever, and then you get it rented and you go to your refinance, then you're going to do a cash out refinance to try to get your money back so you can go out and rinse and repeat, right? Do it again. So that's one way to do it. The problem with that way is you'll save some money on the upfront because you're not paying hard money type rates. But you're going to be paying more interest on the back. And the reason for that is there's a big difference between cash out refinance and rate and term refinance, which you could probably speak about better than I can.
Yeah.
But you'll have a lower rate if you're not pulling any cash out, and there's no title seasoning. So you can get in and out of these very quickly. If you could rehab and get a place rented in a month, you could refinance in a month. There's no Fannie Mae title seasoning guidelines.
Right.
So the other way is what we do. You come in with high leverage. So you could finance the purchase and the construction. You don't have hardly any money, or sometimes no money out of your own pocket. Do that process. And then when you do the refinance, it's a rate and term because you're just paying off the current debt. And so now you lock in your lower rate. And I'm assuming you're going to keep it for a long term. It's a pretty good strategy. So it's the BRRRR strategy is to buy properties with the highest leverage as you can. That cash flow, you got to be smart here. So you want it to cash flow. And that's a way you could build a bigger portfolio.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you pointed that out in terms of that distinction, because it's important that people understand that, right? Cash out refinances are going to hit you as far as LTV, so loan to value. You're not going to be able to pull as much out. And you're also going to pay more in terms of points and rate in order to pull that cash out. And the idea behind it is that's a higher risk loan to the lender. Right. And so the lender, for lack of a better term, is going to, I don't want to call it soak you, but they're gonna let's be honest, right? they're gonna stick it to you a little bit. People need to understand that that's something that has to factor into the strategy. And it's important that we talk about that before somebody gets a property under contract, right? Yes. So if somebody's thinking about doing the BRRRR method, which is really popular and it's a great way to build a portfolio, they really should reach out to you and talk with you about it and find out what it is, how it is that they go about doing it. So let me ask you this. Let's say that you're talking to somebody who's in one of your areas that you finance, and they're a first-time flipper. So they've never flipped a house before. Maybe they've got experience in the business, whatever, but they're doing their first flip. What sort of if they're flipping it, if they're buying it and they need the rehab financed as well, what sort of down payment do you require? What does it look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you're in one of our markets, which is the only place we're lending on the
Right.
residential side, we don't have a loan to cost. So
Okay.
what you're referring to now is a loan to cost ratio. So how
Right.
much will I loan compared to what it costs to do the project?
Correct.
We have a no loan to cost ratio requirement.
Okay.
We have a loan to value requirement, which is 70%. And
Which
that's
is your
of
exit.
the ARV value, right? So
Right.
if you can get all in purchase, rehab, and your closing costs and still be under 70% of the future value, we'll finance 100% for you. We
Okay.
don't see a ton of that, just to be real transparent here.
Yeah.
So it is possible, no money down, but usually we have a little bit of money into it. The answer to that is, well, you just have to cover the difference. So if
Right.
you're all in at 73, we're capping you at 70, then you need 3%.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's go back because a lot of people listening to this don't know what ARV is.
Yeah,
Yeah. ARV stands for after repair value.
right.
So what you do is if you're looking at a property and it's distressed, it's in rough shape, whatever, right? You figure out other comparables, sales comparables that are around that have sold around that immediate area recently, last 6 months or so, that have been remodeled. Okay. And you try and figure out it's not ever going to be exact most of the time, but you try and figure out somewhere where you think the ARV might be. And then once you figure out what that ARV is, and let's just use an example. Let's use some round numbers for my brain. Let's say it's $100,000. You're going to basically have all of your rehab and your purchase price needs to be at $70,000, right? And if you're there, and you, by the way, have to look at the ARV and agree to it, correct? As the
That's
lender,
right.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we agree on the 100,000. Let's say we agree on the 100,000 and we're at 70%. So we pay 70,000 for the property and the rehab is in there too. So in this case, let's say it's $100,000 budget. You have to pay $600,000 for the house. You have $100,000 rehab budget. Now you're at 70, or pardon me, 10,000. I apologize. Let me go back.
Yeah, that's okay.
60,000. You'd have a $10,000 budget, get you to 70,000. That's your number, right? That's your
That's
deal.
right.
But let's say you're
You
at
got it.
75, just for fun. Let's say it runs to 75. If it runs to 75, then what you need down is that $5,000. You need that difference, that 5%. As long as you have that 5% in there, you're good to go.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it really is that simple as far as the qualifying for the property or the project. We are going to run it through a profitability test and make sure that you're actually going to make money.
Yeah.
But the numbers that we're talking about here, you will make money on that deal,
Yeah.
unless you make a mistake on your rehab. So we do see people do that and they go
Yeah.
over budget or whatever. There's still a chance to lose money, but assuming the numbers are accurate, then you will make money on that type of project.
Yeah.
So we'll run it through the profitability and make sure that you're profitable, and we could talk about that.
Yeah, if you're flipping and you don't know what you're doing, okay, and even if you do, it's not a bad idea to have a contractor that checks your numbers, because that contractor is the one that's going to get paid to do that work.
That's right. You should do
Right?
that.
And so, sit down with that contractor or walk the property with that contractor, make sure you're all on the same page. Make sure that you understand what the actual costs are, because if you're off, it's coming out of your pocket. It's not going to be something that the lender is going to cover. So it's important that people understand that. That's where people get into trouble.
Totally.
Because they make these assumptions, right? And assumptions are a very dangerous thing in real estate. So if you have, get your contractor engaged, get your contractor to walk it with you and confirm whatever numbers you have. It's very
Yeah,
important.
no, I agree 100%. I might even add that you might want more than one contractor.
Yeah.
And if you do that, definitely make sure that you tell them what you want done, and then have a separate space for them to put in whatever they think needs to be done, because they all have their opinions. It happens 100% of the time.
Yeah.
But if they start adding their opinion to your budget, now you're comparing an apple to an orange.
Right.
So if you have everyone bid this list of things,
Mhm.
and then you can compare them much easier.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Totally agree. Okay. So somebody is in one of those 4 areas that you lend in, right? And so we're talking Wisconsin, we're talking Minnesota, St. Paul, we're talking, pardon me, we're talking about Minneapolis, St. Paul, pardon me. We're talking about Wisconsin. We're talking about Washington, D.C. and Denver. So if anybody's in those areas, they just need to reach out to you, and basically you can help them with what they need to try to figure out how to go forward.
Yeah, let's do it. Come with me. I'll help you. When you hire Pine Financial, you're getting a partner in your deal, because look, we don't want the property back. We want you to be successful, so you borrow from us again.
Right.
There's a lot of hard money and private money lenders that require experience. We are not one of those. We want to help groom. We want to lift people up. So we might ask that you have some experience on your team. Maybe you're a realtor or someone who knows what they're doing, so that you're not blindly going at it. But don't worry if it's your first project. We want to help.
If you have a contractor that's done it before, right? And let's say many times, right? And you have a realtor on your team that's been in the mix, so to speak, right? You can surround yourself with people that have, and I want to make sure that people understand this. I'm not suggesting that they take this enormous risk. What I am suggesting, though, is if they want to get into this side of the business, put your team together, right? And part of your team needs to be Pine Financial, I think. They need to reach out to you, and they need to figure out what you need and how they can be successful with you. Because, like you said, you don't want the property back. And what you really want is you want a customer that you're going to have from now on.
Yeah, that's right.
And, the best way to do it is to start off correctly. So that's cool.
And look, when you have someone like us looking at it, we're not going to make a dumb loan, right? We're looking over your shoulder, making sure that your numbers are accurate. Obviously, again, you can go over your budget without anybody realizing it. Our best clients go over their budget still. So that's why we build in contingencies. And there's some other things that we could talk about. But we're here to help support and not lose money. That's the goal.
Absolutely. And, it's an interesting time right now. Costs are not going down. And so,
they did for a little while because of all but now you're right. They're definitely on the rise now. All the backlog of the chain supply chain issues is gone now. So yes, you're right. They're going up now.
Yeah. So something to think about when you're bidding out your materials, right? When you're bidding out the work, when you're doing the things you're doing, you need to be thinking in terms of you're in an increasing cost time right now. And so you almost need to factor in a percentage of potential increase and have that in your budget, right? Some of the absolute best in the business have that kind of, let's call it slush, whatever you want to call it, right? But they have a margin in there that they have built into the deal so that they're as accurate at the end as they possibly can be.
Right.
And they try to anticipate what they can in terms of, lumber costs going up or whatever, right? This thing with this, and I don't know how much of this affects you guys, but this thing with this cargo ship that hit the bridge in Baltimore, that shut down a major port. That's one of the biggest ports on the planet, let alone in the US. Nothing's moving, like literally nothing's moving. And that can be a real issue. The stuff that's going on in the Middle East, and they're having to go down around the Horn of Africa, that's having an impact on costs. And I don't want to scare people, but I do want them to think in terms of, this is stuff that we need to factor in, because when you're flipping a house, you're 2-3 months in construction. You're going to be buying materials 2-3 months from now that may be higher in cost than where they are currently, or what you're currently being quoted. So just something to think about. But listen, I cannot thank you enough for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been an absolute blast. And I did not anticipate that we were going to have this much fun. I knew we'd have fun, but I didn't realize we'd have this much. But Kevin, I really appreciate you being on. It was great to meet you, bud.
Yeah, Mike, I really appreciate it too. And, a lot of things we didn't get into. Normally people ask me about the economy and what's going on in the market, especially housing. So I did just throw this out there if it's okay. There's a report that we give away for free if you're interested in.
Absolutely.
I compare a crash in the 90s. What happened in the 90s after the savings and loans is better resemblance of what's going on now.
Yeah.
Compared to 2008, which we touched on in this episode. So look, it's nowhere near 2008. It doesn't even resemble it at all. but it does have some similarities to the 1990s. So I just compare what's going on right now to that recession, and I put it in a report. We give it away for free. It's thepinereport.com, thepinereport.com. So I know a lot of people are interested in what's going on right now, and things are getting even more interesting, aren't they?
Yeah, every day. So we'll put a link to that in your description for the episode, so people can just click on it and go get it.
Sounds great.
Anything else?
I really appreciate your time. I had a ton of fun too. I mean, I shared with you about the rodeo, which I never do. So you know something about me a lot of people don't. Yeah, I had a great time. So I really do appreciate you putting this out there for everybody and having me on.
Man, I learned a ton. I had no idea the Army was ever in the rodeo. I had no idea. That is just crazy.
That was a long time ago.
Cool. Huh?
That seems like a long time ago.
Well, if you think about it, it probably was a recruiting tool too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe he lied to me. Maybe there never was a rodeo. I don't know. I mean,
well, but
pretty sure there was.
You got a lot of country boys coming off the farm, right?
Yeah.
That are they're going to go into one of the 4 branches. And if you're the branch that has rodeo.
Yeah, they got me.
Yeah. Pretty cool. I love it. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate
All right, Mike. Have a good one.
You too. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.